At least it has a headphone jack. So, here's the iPad 9, and this thing is roughly on par with the performance of the iPhone 11, you know, minus the 1 gig of RAM it's missing. And the iPhone 11 is actually the oldest iPhone to get the update to iOS 26, and this iPad shares a chip with it, so I'm kinda curious, how usable is this thing today? Really only one way to find out. Let's set the thing up and use it. Oh, that's pretty neat. We can quickly set up our iPad by bringing our current iPhone near it. Hello? It's not really working. That sucks. Guess we'll just have to set it up without another device. Even though the iPad 9 has a bit less room to work with because of the bezels on the thing, I find the touchscreen keyboard to be really nice on iPad OS. Mainly because the more you use the thing, the faster you can get with it. I love how you can just pull down for the symbols and numbers easily. It probably helps if you actually know what you're typing first. Apple believes privacy is a fundamental human right. Yeah, okay, I was browsing Google the other day, they showed me an ad for food. How would they know I eat? Now, while it's cool this thing has a home button, Touch ID really isn't exclusive to this model because the iPads that came after it that have less bezels, you can just touch the lock button to scan your finger. To tell you the truth though, it's way more convenient to have the Touch ID sensor in a place your finger's gonna actually rest instead of way up here in the corner. Looks like it's time to log in with our Apple ID, or Apple account. Sorry, I'm still getting used to that. Please read these agreements careful. Update your iPad automatically? Yeah, sure. Locations, oh yeah, not on camera. You're running out of iCloud storage. Normally on most devices you don't gotta worry about this, but the iPad 9 starts at 64 gigs, and this is actually a 64 gig model, so you might want to consider just paying the buck a month. And that's it for the setup. Let's take a look at how smooth the operating system is. Dude, I already told you, I'm not doing that. So first thing I'm noticing performance-wise in the operating system, it actually feels really fluid. Now, iOS 26 is known to wreak havoc on like older devices performance-wise, but it seems to have no effect here. It feels exactly as snappy as it would on iOS 18. Start to multitask a bit and you might notice some problems. I did say there's only 3 gigs of RAM on this thing. Speaking of which, iPadOS 26 isn't all doom and gloom, by the way. You got a great new windowing system that wasn't here before. Before iPadOS 26, all you had access to was full screen apps, but with this update, we can actually try to use this thing like a computer. Just swipe up from the corner and wow, this thing does more than just play YouTube. Unfortunately, if you want to do serious multitasking, you got 2 problems with this device. One, iPadOS, it has some stupid limitations, like you can't play both audio sources at one time, and you can only have a maximum of 3 focused windows. Everything else in the background, you gotta reload it. And when using 3 floating windows, the system performance, while it doesn't grind to a halt, there's definitely a bit more lag than there was before. Anyways, multitasking aside, let's take a look at note-taking. So the Apple Pencil situation on this thing, it's pretty bad actually. You're limited to the Apple Pencil 1, which came out in 2015. If I were you though, I wouldn't pay the upcharge for the Apple Pencil. I would just go on Amazon and buy like a $10 Meta pen. It does the exact same thing. Now the Apple Pencil might not feel the best on this device for 2 good reasons. One, the screen isn't laminated. Now what lamination means is like the glass on the outside of the iPad is a bit like, there's like an air gap between the actual screen under the glass and the glass itself. And next, the 60Hz refresh rate, which really isn't that big of a deal on this device because of how cheap it's going for nowadays, but it's still something to consider if you want something nice and responsive. That aside though, let's take a look at the camera. So the main sensor on this thing is just absolutely pathetic. 8 megapixels and it can only shoot video at 1080p 30. As I expected, the photos on this thing, they're not the best, but they'll do the job, and the videos are, they're just bad, to tell you the truth. You can literally make out the grain shifting around in this video. I think that's enough of the pre-installed apps, though. Let's start taking a look at some What just happened? Okay, anyways, let's take a look at some third-party apps. Can you really call yourself an iPad kid if you don't have Roblox? Minecraft too, I guess. Wonder if we can install Fortnite on here. Disclaimer, Fortnite can be played on these devices, and the minimum for the iPad is a 10th gen, so we just can't play Fortnite on this thing. That kinda sucks. I guess the next best thing would be watching people play it. Canva's on iPad? I had no idea. I actually used this thing to make my thumbnails, so it'll be pretty fun to test on this thing. We can also try out Photoshop, but it's kinda got a bit of a cancer tumor attached to the name there. So I'm gonna keep browsing the App Store for apps I want to test out on this thing, and I'll get back to you when I'm ready to use them. Alright, so I got most of the stuff I want to test out installed. We're gonna do a bit of sideloading later and actually run like Windows and stuff on this along with maybe GameCube games, but we'll do that in a bit. For now, let's take a look at YouTube. Allow YouTube to track your activity across other companies' apps and websites? What? Who would hit allow? The YouTube app itself is obviously really snappy on this iPad. And while this is a budget model, the iPad 9 screen is actually a bit higher resolution than 1440p, so content is just going to look great on it. And it can handle videos at that resolution just fine. Skip forward, skip behind, it's just going to immediately catch up. Picture-in-picture also works fine, but be a bit careful if you're going to be multitasking with picture-in-picture, because like I said before, you only have 3 gigs of RAM, so use it wisely. Next up, let's take a look at Roblox. Let's try out some Arsenal. Based on how Roblox runs on other Apple devices, I bet this can handle max settings no problem. Yeah, I'm right here. This game runs really smooth. I haven't seen it drop below 60 frames once this game. Stable frame rates can't really buy you skill though. What about a more demanding game like Doors? Similar to Arsenal, this game also performs amazing on the iPad 9. I really had zero clue Roblox could actually look this good when cranked to the max settings. Alright, now let's try out Canva. Again with the tracking? Okay, here's a project idea. Let's try to edit this broken screen image onto this actual shattered screen. Okay, so we upload our photos here, and there's the photo library, and we can also use what I'm guessing is a native file system. Now, it's not as good as the Mac OS, like, Finder, but at least you have a downloads folder, so you can shove, like, your PDF files and stuff into different apps. But for now, all we need is just the photos we had in our library. And the Canva app is performing as expected. No stutters here. Yeah, this looks convincing, right? Maybe Photoshop will do a better job later. For now, though, let's actually treat the iPad like a computer and sideload some stuff on here, which, ironically, we're going to need an actual computer for. So first thing we're going to need is some software to sideload the app files onto the thing, which I've already got installed. Perfect, so we're going to install two apps. One is Stick Debug, which actually lets us use the power of the iPad, and next we're going to use UTM so we can install, like, Windows and stuff on here. First, we got to open the Stick Debug app. Oh, we gotta enable developer mode. Typical Apple. Oh, I almost forgot, but you gotta use this app called iDevice Pair to get the pairing file to use with Stick Debug. And because of the way you gotta enable JIT, we have to use this VPN app right here. And now we're all good. Let's run Linux on this thing. And after waiting 2 minutes for everything to boot up, we have a fully usable Linux desktop environment on our iPad. If you want to do this yourself, honestly, I would just remote into a computer that's elsewhere. Mainly so you could use the rest of the RAM on the system to multitask in other windows, and also to save on your battery life on this thing. Speaking of which, the battery life on this iPad is fantastic. That's why it's such a shame this thing doesn't use USB-C and instead uses the archaic Lightning port. Now let's take a look at Dolphin iOS. Unfortunately, to do this, you do need to sideload the Dolphin app, and you also need to give it UTM access by doing the process we just did. Hope this runs well. Oh, did you just see that stutter right there? So unfortunately, emulating GameCube games on the iPad 9, it's not a very stable experience. There's hitches just all over the place whenever I'm playing Smash Bros. Yeah, this isn't really playable with how much it just freezes. And that's the GameCube running at the native resolution too. We're not doing any upscaling over here. Now let's take a look at a Wii game with New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Now, this is gonna be way easier to run than Smash Bros. Melee, but let's take a look regardless. Alright, well, I guess... Oh, okay, thank you. My voice was getting a bit tired there. This is way better than Smash Bros. Melee, and there is still stutters around the game, but it's not, like, insane like it was on Melee. How do I fly? I guess Z, B... Oh, let me guess. Do you actually have to shake the device? Oh, that's hilarious. So that's a pretty cool look at what you can do outside the walled garden, but let's go right back into it and try out Minecraft from the App Store. So Minecraft on the iPad 9, it's actually pretty impressive. The performance is relatively stable and the game just looks amazing. That's the walking on the ground survival performance though. If you're flying all over the place in creative, you're gonna start to notice some frame drops. Overall, nothing too bad though. Definitely better than GameCube. Now let's take a look at Photoshop. And surprisingly, Photoshop is actually pretty smooth on the iPad 9. Honestly, this app better be smooth though, especially because you gotta pay a monthly subscription fee for the thing. It's very intuitive though. Yeah, wow, that's actually way more convincing. And now, time for the ultimate test. Can the iPad 9 do video editing? I just airdropped a 4K 60 clip of me playing with the iPad for a minute. Let's see how long it takes it to render it. We're just gonna do the standard 4K 60 high quality though. 3 minutes and 24 seconds to export a 4K 60 file at 1 minute. It could definitely be better. So that's the iPad 9 in 2026. Now obviously the simpler stuff like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, it's gonna work fine. You could run that on like an iPhone 6s. And the more intensive stuff, it really just depends on the optimization. Stuff like Roblox, that just runs amazing on all Apple devices, so it was no problem for this. Stuff like Minecraft and Premiere definitely push the device to its limits though. But really intensive stuff like emulating GameCube, it's not gonna be that good on this device. And while you can run Linux natively on this thing, the main issue, which I guess goes for the entire rest of the iPad, 3 gigs of RAM. Even the iPhone XS Max from 2018 had 4 gigs of RAM. You are really limiting yourself here. Along with the base storage configuration on this thing. Now, I installed a couple apps and I didn't use too much of the storage, but if you start to save more videos, more photos, it's gonna fill up really quick. So that leads us to our question, is the iPad 9 really usable today? I would say yeah. There are some downsides, but you can negate them if you know what you're doing. The RAM won't be too much of an issue if you just keep things simple on the iPad. I'm talking maybe like a YouTube PIP and Safari. As for the storage, storage, just get iCloud Plus, it's $1 a month. But when it comes to the value of the iPad 9 compared to the iPad A16 today, it's really no contest. The iPad A16 just mops the floor with this thing. On eBay, you can either get the iPad 9 for $150, or you can get the A16 for $260. You're spending like $110 more and you get a chip that's going from the iPhone 11 to the iPhone 15. You're doubling your storage, you get USB-C, you get the no bezel design, and you go from 3 gigs of RAM to 4 gigs of RAM. There's a really common saying where you get what you pay for, and it's really evident with this. In my opinion, just pay the extra $110, get a way more usable device. Or just use this thing as a YouTube machine. Anything works. Thanks for watching, and let me know down in the comments what other devices do you want me to take a look at. Alright, I'll see you later.